That's not a comic book. Now that's a comic book.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Comic Reviews. I'm your host, Sid Part 2. Joining me today is my co-host, Danny the Lizard, who is shedding a bit. Danny is also sick, so everyone be very nice to Danny. Do everything to make him happy. Things that make Danny happy are leaving comments for suggestions of things for me to review, and liking and sharing this video. Those are all things that make Danny very happy, aren't they? Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. So this is the first issue of this new JLA book. I haven't been reading Justice League since Throne of Atlantis started up. I just didn't care. And so I decided to pick this up more just because I needed to pick something else up today because I only had one normal book. But I was very pleasantly surprised by this. I know this has been out for a couple weeks, so I'm kind of late to the game, but I was really happy with this. I'm immediately interested with, Dead Superman, and then we're immediately getting some kind of payoff for that, but we're still left in the dark, which is great. And then the action in this, with this amazing fight with the Justice League and Parasite, is really cool. I really enjoyed this. This is a lot of fun to read. And then we're left with a great cliffhanger with the great god Rao coming up in the end of it. And the other thing I like about it is everyone has something to do. Even Cyborg is suddenly interesting to have on the Justice League, which I never thought anyone could do, but this Hitch guy did it, man. I bought the cover with Green Lantern on it just because, Green Lantern's cool, and Hal, he's ultimately not very helpful in this, but everyone gets a cool thing to do except Aquaman in this book. But Aquaman's getting to talk to the United Nations, which is fun, and he's getting, his own thing to do. He's part of the subtext setting up this cliffhanger at the end, and it looks like we have the Justice League kind of divided in half, with Wonder Woman off doing her own thing in this. Again, Wonder Woman's got the old costumes, so I guess just Finch's change to the book isn't really taking a huge effect right now, which is kind of funny. But I really enjoyed this. I thought this was just a really fun book. $6, on the other hand, makes it a little tough. Honestly, if I didn't need anything else, like if I'd already had a bunch of books, because honestly, this didn't grab my attention for a number of reasons, mostly because $6 is damned expensive for a comic book. And that's like half a trade almost, and we're certainly getting quite a bit in this, but still, that's a little much. So that's why for a number of weeks I just kept avoiding it on the stands, but there was nothing else that was really piquing my interest on the stands this week, and I saw this sitting there for, $6, and that's exactly how much I needed to be able to buy it with buy my books this week with my card. So I went ahead and grabbed it, and I'm honestly, I'm happy that I did, but at the same time, $6, that's a hard sell for anything. Ultimately, though, I do think it's worth it. There's not a ton to say. It's just, it's set up, and it's really fun action. Everyone usually gets kind of dumbed down on the Justice League, except for Batman, of course. Batman always gets to be the smartest guy in the room. And that's kind of what's going on here, but not in an insulting way. They are just kind of like blindsided by Parasite, and Batman makes the point that no one knows who Parasite is besides himself and Superman. So, they are kind of blindsided, and they don't really know how to deal with it, and just Parasite being around him elevates him to such a high-level threat so quickly that it's really clever, that they don't have time to react. So I was pretty happy with this overall. I thought this was pretty clever. I think I'll pick up the next issue. I don't know if I'm going to add it to my pull list yet. If I like the next issue as much as I like this first one, I'll probably go for it. but we'll see. Justice League has hurt me in the past, so we will see how it goes. Next, I have Doctor Who number 13. Doctor Who, the 10th Doctor, number 13. The more this story arc's going on, the more I'm just kind of meh to it. It's thoroughly okay, at the moment. Right now I'm enjoying the backups with Rose the cat more than anything else. It's just alright. It's interesting enough, but I'm just not wowed with it right now. Basically there's some kind of alien entity that's connecting with a human, and it's just not doing it for me. Like I said last time, it's just a lot of setup and stuff, and there's not enough payoff, and the premise itself isn't interesting enough for me yet. It's still got the pretty good stinger at the end there with the, you could almost feel the sound effect at the end of this book. But ultimately, I'm just not loving what's going on in this book right now, which is crazy because up until this story arc started, I was adoring this book. This book was fantastic, and right now it's just okay. So I'm really hoping to see something else develop. Right now it's just looking like a hump that I'm going over in story arcs. What I am interested in is this 4 Doctors book on the back. Because I'm assuming that means that the 9th Doctor will be in it, though they're kind of vague about it. The cover for the first issue is the only one that really seems to be hinting at which Doctor we're getting in, and it's just like a white cutout, so it could be any of them, really. I don't know, interesting stuff, though, overall. This story arc is looking more and more skippable as it goes. It's just not really doing it for me yet. Keyword being yet. Nothing, honestly, I'll tell you once the story arc finishes up, but I feel like you could probably skip what's going on there. Some interesting stuff with the whole idea of changing buildings, though. So yeah, really light week, though, on single issues. I only had 1 issue when I walked in, so I had to buy some other stuff, and so I bought 1 other issue, and I really liked it. I was very pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed the JLA book, but yeah, not a killer week for 1 arc story, or for single issues in comics. Do you agree with me? I think he does. He's looking around and stuff. You got something in your mouth. Alright, let's go ahead and move on. I finally got to it! It took forever and a day. Look, Danny, Godzilla. It's Godzilla. It's the king of the monsters. Godzilla the Half-Century War. This was good. I can honestly say this is the first thing Godzilla related that I thoroughly enjoyed and had absolutely no reservations about. Godzilla 2014 I thought was okay. I enjoyed it enough. I thought there was some interesting stuff going on in that. But yeah, there's a lot not to like about that movie. No. There's a lot not to like about Godzilla 2014. You want to be Godzilla, don't you? Yes. So I can see people's reservations about that. But this, oh man, this was brilliant. So the premise of this book is there's a guy who's maybe 20 in 1954 when Godzilla first attacks. And so he has to, he's in a tank when Godzilla first attacks Tokyo in 1954. I believe it's Tokyo. Fuck if I know. And then he and the tank driver kind of lure Godzilla away from a city square so people have enough time to get out. And it's because of that they get selected to join up with this unit that's hoping to rid the world of Godzilla, or at least attempting to. And they spend the next 50 years dealing with Godzilla in one way or another, and dealing with all the other monsters that show up because of Godzilla. And so we get their first encounter with another monster in Vietnam, and we deal with all this stuff. And they talk about how there's been all these efforts when Godzilla was just roaming around Japan to deal with him, all these different experimental methods to deal with Godzilla, and like they'd had varying degrees of success, but nothing that was able to kill Godzilla, basically. And one of their efforts was like this device, this kind of like satellite-like device that was meant to discourage other creatures, or discourage Godzilla from going anywhere. But this scientist had turned it into a device to attract monsters. So that's, and he first used it in Vietnam, which is why we got two monsters fighting Godzilla and Baragon, I think his name is. And then just a couple years later, we have just this entire city turned into a war zone of monsters. All these different guys fighting, and like as all these different monsters appeared in the world, new teams were developed to help fight the monsters. Which is great. What I really like about it is it's a really simple continuity to understand, and since you're only following one guy through it, and you can sympathize with him because he's just trying to deal with a monster that's destroying the world, basically. And of course, the true monster is man, because the guy had changed his satellite into a device to attract monsters, and that escalates the whole thing. You meant for it to just be a way for, countries to be able to sick monsters on each other and stuff, as to use monsters as a weapon, but as he makes his devices more and more powerful so that they attract monsters from further and further away, it becomes a problem in India, where we get, wait for it, finding the page, where we get Space Godzilla, which has never made any sense, but Space Godzilla, and it's clearly its own thing in this continuity, but I just think that's a really clever idea. It's a really great way to get all these monsters into one universe and not have the continuity issues that you would with other Godzilla things, and be able to keep a consistent thing going. Honestly, the only problem with this is it wraps itself up. So they're able to team up with Mechagodzilla and Godzilla to defeat Space Godzilla. And then we get to 2002, and we have just all these other monsters, or not all these other. We have King Ghidorah and Rodan, I believe it's called, showing up. Yeah, you're more of a King Ghidorah, Danny. You have King Ghidorah and Rodan showing up to fight Godzilla, because they've been called from space because this satellite is just so powerful. And I'm just blown away by how clever the conceit to get all of this to happen in Godzilla's 50-year history, basically, and have it all be really easy to follow and all make a lot of sense without getting way too complex and overly intricate, and without having to blend a bunch of different things together. I'm really impressed with this. But also, there's some really great character stuff for this guy that we followed all the way through. He's just always blown away by how little Godzilla cares about him. He's just completely insignificant to Godzilla. And as he has gotten older and more wearied, or more weared down over the years that he's been fighting Godzilla, Godzilla hasn't changed at all. He's still just the biggest, baddest monster, and there's nothing that's different about that. So after this black hole gun is used to get rid of Rodan and Ghidorah, the guy has this amazing speech, and I'll try my best to do it justice, but Godzilla's turning away to walk away from the black hole that Rodan and Ghidorah were just sucked into. And the guy says, "No! You're not walking away again, Godzilla! Not this time! I'll make you notice me!" And he's like punching at Godzilla and fighting him. "Look at me, you damn monster!" And Godzilla roars at at Mechagodzilla, the dude's in, and he goes, stubborn to the very end. Typical Godzilla. "Thanks for seeing me off, big guy. It's been quite the journey." And then they go into the black hole together and die together is the idea. So that's the only thing that's disappointing about this is it sets up this great world for Godzilla and all the other monsters to exist in under one stable continuity, but it does so without having to be too intricate, too complex. Like you could clearly set up all the other monsters. This would be perfect for a film universe to do like a I'd say you could probably manage to get like 10 movies if you could get one actor who could stay with it the whole time and have one movie come out every 4 to 5 years. You could probably get a great 10-series movie out of it. And you probably couldn't call it the Half-Century War. It'd probably be significantly less time, but it's brilliant to set it up in the comics in that way, to be able to do this epic saga that's been going on for half a century, and Godzilla hasn't changed at all throughout the entirety of it. This is brilliant, though. I loved this. This is the kind of stuff I want to see with Godzilla, where there's this great use of, excuse me. You're not getting away. There's this great use of what it means to exist in a world with monsters, and how monsters can become these weapons of war and stuff. But there's also this great commentary on time and its effects on a person. Godzilla stands and he's this, unchangeable, unmoving force in reality, and at the same time, this guy has gone from being, a young man who's self-described as barely out of his teens to just this old veteran of monster era, and who just has nothing left in him, but this will to fight Godzilla, to be recognized by Godzilla the same way he recognizes Godzilla, and that's great stuff. There's some great stuff in this book. I was really happy with it. I might pick up some of the other IDW stuff because this was just so cool. I'll have to talk to Bill and see what he suggests I should pick up after this. Because that was brilliant. That was one of the best, like, hands down the best thing I've ever seen with Godzilla. Just great. Absolutely loved it. You're active, but right now. Alright, Danny has been moved to the other room because he's too active, and I'm trying to focus on you guys, because you're the important ones. Next we move on to Superman Earth 1, Volume 3. I did Volume 2 a couple weeks ago. I'll put a link down in the description. This is good. I'm really enjoying JMS's take on Superman. I really would have liked to see him continue his run on the Superman comics with that whole walkabout thing that he did right before the New 52 started up. Like, he handed it off to someone else, and I heard as soon as they left the book, and that's not surprising, because, you can't always just be the one to plot a book. You need to be there to help see it along, if you will. But this stuff, his Earth 1 stuff, might very well be worth it. I could see making a franchise out of this. You need, obviously, to make it a little longer, a movie franchise out of this. You need, obviously, to make it a little longer to fit the time frame, but there's so much in here. You could fill that out with, some cool side action scenes, add maybe a subplot with another villain or something in each book, and you've got a lot going on here. I'll make a joke later. But there's one thing about this that I don't really need to see in a movie series, but I'll make a joke about that later. So The premise of this is that Zod appears on Earth and is able to turn the people against Superman because of their natural fear of him after what he did in the last book by overthrowing a government. And so they're funding the Luthor couple's research into ways to defeat Superman using some kind of red sun ray that'll like temporarily take away his powers. And there's a Superman signal, which I think it's funny that we get a Superman signal before we get a Bat signal, but I'll get back to that. So Zod is simultaneously turning people against Superman while at the same time, making Superman think that he can be trusted because he's like some kind of like, I think he tells Superman that he's his uncle or something. And he does it he gives it just enough time to make it so that Superman can fact check it, but he doesn't have the chance to because of everything else that's going on. So what Zod does is he convinces humanity to make sure that they don't assist Superman in any way, shape, or form. It's not that he actively gets them to, help him kill Superman or anything. He just gets them to turn a blind eye for long enough that he can go do his thing, which is pretty clever of him. He doesn't ask for help killing him, and he tells them that Superman's family has been these, horrible criminals on his planet, yada, yada, yada. There's also some good stuff with Lois Lane in this, but I'll get back to that. So Superman and Zod have their fight, and Zod's just murdering him because Lex, in the middle of the fight, shoots Superman with the ray to take away his powers. But Lex, seeing what Zod's doing, immediately realizes what a mistake that was, and decides that the right thing to do, the correct thing to do, would be to turn the weapon against Zod. But doing that leads to Lex Luthor's death. And that's brilliant because it's what we use to set up a different Lex Luthor. You always expect Lex Luthor to become the evil bad guy thing that hates Superman. And we get that, but it's actually his wife, Alexandra Luthor, who at the end of the book says to call her Lex. There's this moment during the fight where Clark's just absolutely sure he's going to die. And so he stumbles into a bar real quick. Because, you want to drink now. He stumbles into a bar real quick. And he says, cell phone, please. Stay back, stay away, in case he. And they call someone. And it's his mom. She says, hello? And he goes, Mom, it's me. She says, Clark? Oh my God, Clark, I don't have time. Superman, I don't have time. I just wanted to say, I love you, Mom. And she says, Clark, oh God, I love you. And he says, goodbye, and smashes the phone. That's so good. That's such a great Superman moment where he calls his mom. It's a really touching thing. And the girl from the last book, the one-time prostitute, ends up figuring out who Clark is by happenstance because he keeps his costume in his closet. Figures out who Clark is and is actually, because she's in love with him, is actually able to help him out and doesn't try to use that against him or anything. Just such a good book. God. Alexandra Luthor ends up killing Zod in this, which is interesting. I really like this. This is just a lot of fun to read. And then, she tries to kill Clark, but his powers come back enough, and so she's decided that she has a vendetta against him because it's Clark's fault that Lex Luthor died. But then Clark gets to give or Superman gets to give a really cool speech to the UN, where he talks about, like, you guys are fucking crazy. Why would you trust him? Anyone that can take down me is gonna be able to put a lot of hurt on you. I haven't done anything to deserve this kind of behavior yet. I know I scared you with taking over that dictator. I realize now that was the wrong decision, and I promise I won't do anything like that again. But at the same time, don't be stupid and just hand over power to someone that might be, well, worse than me. You don't even know how much of a threat I am, and so far I've done nothing to be a threat to you. That's like this whole speech that he gives to him. And, oh my god, it was so good. And then we get some really touching stuff where he takes the girl. I can never remember her goddamn name. Lisa. Okay, Lisa. That's her name, Lisa. He takes Lisa home to meet his mom for dinner, which is it's just sweet. And then at the end we find out that kryptonite that Zod came with and used to get the upper hand on Superman at first was used or was stolen from his ship. My biggest complaint with this is the last two volumes we got the articles, or at least part of the articles that Clark Kent and Lois Lane were writing on Superman or things related to Superman. And with how big a deal the journalistic career of Clark Kent was in the last book, I was very disappointed not to get another article here where he did more hard journalism stuff. But, you know, you take what you can get. Another touch I like is that Lex Luthor, instead of being a businessman in this, like, you know, we're used to him now, is just a scientist. I think that's really clever because, you know, classic Lex Luthor was just a mad scientist. So in this new version of Earth 1, we have scientist Lex Luthor again. So I thought that was pretty smart. I don't know how much I have to say about this. It's just a really good, really touching Superman story, and I don't know why. I've heard people don't like this take on him, and I think it's brilliant. I think this is really good Superman stuff, and most importantly, he is Superman. There's no, he's not finding himself anymore or anything. He is being Superman, and like he's making mistakes, I'll give you, but he's still being Superman like 100% through and through, and that's just really enjoyable to see here. If you haven't picked these up yet, do yourself a favor. If you're a Superman fan, or even if you're not, this is a really good way to just get at the heart of who Superman is, and I really enjoy that about it. Steve, I thank you for recommending these. On to my favorite thing I read all week. This was so good. Oh my god, I had such a good week. There is nothing I didn't like. I mean, the Doctor Who book was just thoroughly alright, but not impressive. Everything else here I've been so enjoying. This has been a really good week. So this is the last book we're going to talk about this week, is Batman Earth 1 Volume 2 by Jeff Johns. And Jeff Johns has a questionable ability to write Batman, I think, but if we can get more stuff like this, keep going, Jeff. I think you're finally finding your voice for Batman. This is fun. This is just, it's got, 3 villains in it, basically. Riddler's your main villain, which is what it comes down to, and honestly, there are not enough good Riddler stories, and I have a small issue with the Riddler in this, but I'll get to that later. It's entirely a personal, well, 2 small issues, and they're entirely personal in nature. Everyone else should like it. It's just my particular take on Riddler. And I guess 3 villains isn't correct. There's really only 1 villain. There's just this, they're set up for another, and then the third isn't used as a villain, at least not yet. Like, not even kind of where it's setting up where we can tell he's going to be a villain. He's like a good guy. So yeah, we have Riddler in this, who, like, he's using very much what a lot of people were talking about him doing in the lead up before we knew what the hell, who was going to be in Dark Knight, before we knew if Dark Knight was really going to get a sequel, if who was going to be in it villain wise, and what the title was going to be. A lot of people were talking about, let's have Riddler be kind of like a Jigsaw style serial killer, only instead of, making people do it to themselves or whatever, they have to answer riddles. That's his gimmick. And we kind of get that here. It's not exactly that. There's another level to it. It's not pure serial killerness, but it's still really clever. So he creates all these death traps, which is, what Riddler's always been known for. And his whole thing is, if they can answer the riddle, then I won't set off the trap. Except he's lying. The whole setup of what he's doing is to make it look like it's something grander than it already is. There's misdirection in it. That's the word. There's a lot of misdirection. He's trying to make it look like some kind of horrific serial killer thing, terrorist attack nature kind of thing, like Joker and Dark Knight, for example. But it's not that. There's one specific target in each of the killings that he's doing. It's just he's covering that up by killing a lot more people, which is really clever stuff, and Batman's able to deduce that. Batman's becoming a little more of a detective. That becomes a big part of this, so that's clever. I forgot, they're set up for 3 villains get set up, and there's 1 villain in the book. But more so, this is just a book about corruption and what exactly is going on in the city, and who's responsible, and where the ideas of responsibility come from in Gotham, and who has to do what. There's a lot of Nolan in this, which is great. It really is Johns capturing Nolan, but still doing his own thing, which is, Johns is really good at having fun, and there's a lot of fun to be had in this book, in that, kind of like that murder mystery cop drama, serial killer horror movie kind of way. There's a lot of that going on here, which is a lot of fun. Jeff Johns is co-writing the Batman movie that Ben Affleck's in. And I think he's either co-writing it or he's writing it. And if it's anything like this, it's gonna be fantastic. I thought Volume 1 was just okay, but now he's really getting his feet. He's really fighting his feet and voiced with Batman. I think it's going to be helpful that we're going to have a established Batman in the Man of Steel universe. And so you won't have to deal with an origin thing, and they can really just jump in wherever we want. And I don't know, it might be interesting to see, a Dark Knight Returns actually returned Batman. Because, you read Dark Knight Returns, and the whole premise is, he makes Superman think he's killed him, and blah, blah, blah. And then Dark Knight 2 is a flaming pile of... I don't even want to call it garbage, because that would be an insult to garbage. But, obviously is a flawed work, to say the very least. And so we never really get, what is Batman like once he's returned? Once he's gone into retirement and come back? And that looks like what's going to be going on in Batman vs. Superman is Batman's come out of retirement for Superman. And then we're going to get a movie after that, so it looks like we're going to be we're going to get a Justice League movie and a Batman movie after that, so it looks like we're going to be dealing with in my mind at least, Batman's going to be a street level hero until he comes back to deal with the Superman threat as he sees it, and then once they've reconciled their differences, he's going to evolve into the Bat God to deal with these global threats, because it's a threat to the world and it's a threat to Gotham. He cannot sit idly by and let someone else deal with it. He has to be involved. And so there's a lot of that kind of characterization of Batman in here. He just can't let himself sit anything out. He has to he has to be a part of all of it, and that's really great. And Jeff Johns is really finding his voice for Batman, and it's really working. This is getting up to the this is clearly of the quality of everything Johns did with Blackest Night, or not Blackest Night, with Green Lantern up until Blackest Night. If you want to be a writer, write. That's what they always tell you. And Johns has gotten, pen to paper over and over again. He's really improving his skills. So I am just so pleased with this. This is just great. I don't want to say too much about it because I just feel like you have to go out and read it for yourself to really get a grasp of what's working about it. Critical things wrong with it though. Let me talk about my Riddler thing. One, this is ridiculously small, and it's completely justified within the story itself, just a personal thing. Riddler uses what I guess I'd call internet riddles. You could look up the answers to these on the internet. You don't have to really think about them, or you can tell Johns didn't make them himself. I've heard all of the riddles he's used before, except for the last one, I think. I've heard all of the riddles before, and they're easy to know and they're easy to look up. So the answer is clearly there. But the how to put this? The riddles themselves are used in an interesting way because what is done with them is they're really simple if you know riddles really well, but they're built around the situation. So one of the riddles is what pours like purple paint but smells like green paint and looks like white van, and the answer is white paint. Since it pours the same and smells the same, it just looks like a white van. And that's put in an art gallery and stuff, and they have to answer the riddle before they're lit on fire or whatever. And he only gives them a minute to answer it, so it's a no-win situation that he's put them into, which is put the people into. But it's still a really basic riddle, so the idea is that the level of stress is too high, but the situation around it, since they're in an art gallery and he's giving them a riddle about paint, it's doubly justified in that way. Even though the riddle itself is it's underwhelming. It's really an easy riddle that you can just go look up, but it's ultimately satisfying because of the situation built around it. It's good within the story itself. Otherwise, I'd be a little disappointed. But the story itself does justify the use of internet riddles. And there are 2 or 3 of them that, I've heard them before, I've solved them before. So that part's a touch. So that part is a touch, just disappointing or underwhelming, like I said. But ultimately, I do think that the riddles do work within the context of the story itself. So that it does work overall. Then the other thing for me with Riddler that kind of bothered me, and again, this is more just a personal thing. It's a new universe. You're allowed to change him in some ways because this version of him has been done. There are versions of him that have been done like this before. The riddles aren't pathological enough. Classic Batman thing was the Riddler would commit a crime, give a riddle, or put you in a situation where you had to answer a riddle to get out of it, and Batman would answer the riddle, and the trap would defuse, or the crime would be solved, or whatever. Johns in this decides instead to have him. He asks Batman a riddle, and he tells him that he'll stop a bomb from going off if Batman answers it correctly, and Batman does, but Riddler blows up the bomb anyway and kills a bunch of people. That's something, I'm not sure if it's a problem. It's not a problem with the story itself. Taken on its own, this is great. that is kind of contradictory to a number of versions of the character. It's not that Riddler hasn't been written that way before, but it's very rare for him to be written in that way. So that part is disappointing, for me at least. I don't know how other people felt about that. So I don't love the depiction of Riddler in this, but it is well enough done. Or, well, done well enough that it's serviceable. And with everything else going around it, with Bruce's character and the things he's dealing with the idea of what makes someone a hero or what's really going to help Gotham, I feel like it's just it's good enough to pass. Like, I'd say this book would be an A+ if Riddler was done just a little bit better, but right now it stands probably a B+ or an A. But it's really good, guys. It's really good. Then there's the joke I promised to make. Hold on. So, I guess in the Earth 1 versions of the DC Universe, there's kind of a Rule 36 or whatever it is. There's like a reversal of gender rule for some characters. Because we have Alexander Luthor being the Lex Luthor of this universe. At least it's set up that way. And then we have, what's her name? Oh, man. Julia, maybe? I can't remember her name. It's a really brief scene. Jessica. We have Jessica Dent becoming the Two-Face of this universe instead of Harvey Dent, because Harvey dies immediately after having his face burnt. It's okay. I think it's funny that it happens in both volumes, that we have a different gendered character becoming the villain that we're gonna know. Looks like we have kind of like a like she takes on the personality of evil Harvey Dent's like darker side when he dies. Like, she gets that personality. She has like DID suddenly kick in or something, which good storytelling, I guess. It's good drama if nothing else. We'll have to see what's done with it as time goes on now. It looks like we might be getting that very distinct two completely separate personalities thing from Two-Face in this universe, and Two-Face being a woman. So that's a little, like, it's more just something for me to make fun of than anything else. It's just general silliness in Batman. Who would guess? And DC Comics, for that matter. Harvey Dent's a bit of a dick in this, not gonna lie. But yeah, we have Killer Croc here, who's used interestingly too, because he's not a bad guy. In the end, Batman wouldn't be able to defeat the Riddler if not for Killer Croc stepping in to help and beat him, because he felt bad for what Riddler did to the people on the train that he blew up. I also have Catwoman getting set up. Great last page. I like that last page. We have Catwoman being set up. Batmobile's being set up as well. Don't know if you can hear the dog. I want to kill that dog. And Killer Croc is staying at Wayne Manor. Why not? But I love this exchange with Alfred. What am I supposed to do with this thing? What the hell does it eat? I eat food, old man. It's really funny. It's just Killer Croc is staying at Wayne Manor. Killer Croc is going to be the Robin of this universe. Yes! Make it a thing, Jeff Johns. I decree it. Okay, my silliness is getting to dangerous levels. So I think we're gonna call that it. That is it for comic reviews this week. Let's quickly go over. This is still on my list. This will probably be the next thing I talk about next week. It's really short. It shouldn't take me too long to get through. And I'll probably pick up the issues that would get me to current and then add it to my list if I like it. I'll pick up the issues that would get me to current if I like it. But I imagine I'll like it. It looks pretty cool. So that's upcoming. And I bought this today at the comic book store too on Mr. Steve Baxey's recommendation. Thank you, Mr. Steve Baxey. Captain America, Man Out of Time. We'll see how this goes. I'm excited for it though. It should be interesting and fun nonetheless. But I don't know when I'm going to get to it. I want to get back into Sandman again. I've got my Sandman kind of just sitting over there after I bought all these volumes, so I want to get into that. So this will probably be week after next, and I'll have if I have time, I'll have probably a Sandman volume each week until I've finished all that stuff. But everyone, thank you very much for watching. If you have suggestions for single issues you'd like me to pick up or trades I should keep an eye out for, please leave them in the comments below. I'd love to pick those up and talk about them for you. Keep in mind, I may not enjoy it though. In any case, I am selling, or will be selling the Before Watchmen trade I got on eBay just because it was just okay to me. I enjoyed it, but it's just ultimately okay, so I just don't really feel any need to keep it. So if you want that, let me know in the comments below, and I'll send you a link once I have it posted on eBay. See if you're interested in it. That's the Before Watchmen Comedian and Rorschach book. But ultimately, I think that is going to do it for this week's episode of Comic Reviews. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, folks. Bye.